Okay, we are rolling and we are back and we are live for special edition of Richard Listen Show in studio with my co-host, Mr. Darrell Noel.
What's going on, everybody? How's everything going?
It's going well. I love that your name rhymes.
You like that?
I love that.
So don't forget the middle name, Darrell Montre Noel.
Montre Noel.
So it just rolls.
Okay,
right?
Darrell Montre Noel. I'm working on it. So Darrell is a performance coach, peak and performance coach, strength conditioning, speed and agility, and he is co-hosting on the Richard Listen Show to attack our guests with a whole different angles of questions. So we're gonna have a counterpunch today, and we thank you for all our followers and listeners. We are in studio today with director, actor extraordinaire, and a jiu-jitsu athlete who also performed at the Pan Am Games. He'll share a little bit about that experience. We have Mr. Yuri Rutman.
What's up?
What it is. A brief intro on Mr. Rutman, and he will correct me. He is hailing from Chicago, Illinois, via Skokie.
Lincolnwood.
Well,
it's close enough.
It's close enough.
Yeah, I'm not going to use that against you. It's like a neighboring city, yeah. Lincolnwood, Illinois, yeah.
What's Skokie familiar? What's that known for? Why do I always hear of Skokie?
I don't know. Skokie was like the second place they used to bury, bodies with the mob in Chicago. No, seriously, Lincolnwood was like the first, and I think when they couldn't find any space in Lincolnwood, they just crossed over and went into Skokie.
You see, so I'm getting more and more about your character here.
Okay.
The depth of your character is being revealed. So Yuri Rutman was born in the Kiev, Ukraine. He moved to Israel as an infant, and then his parents brought him over to Chicago when he was 3. He is the child of Holocaust survivors in a family of doctors, engineers, economists, and somehow broke through as a creative entrepreneur. He started writing when he was 10 years old, and he did attend high school in Skokie. So
that's
correct. See, I did do my research here, okay? Let's not dismiss Skokie. He went to Columbia College for film school for a month, and then he needed more freedom in his movie-making capacity. He has produced a few indie films, including Mr. Id, showing his passion for psychology in reference to Sigmund Freud. He's created a bunch of docuseries as an executive producer at Fremantle Media Spike TV, including Warsaw, Chicago, which you can find on vimeo.com/Yuri Rutman. And he has also starred in national commercials from letgo.com and is directed by Craig Gillespie, who recently completed I, Tonya and Fright Night. Fright Night.
Yeah, the horror movie that Colin Farrell.
I told you. See, I love it. I can get Yuri angry in a second. I have that capacity.
It's repressed, man. you always get it out.
It's our Russian ancestry. Huh?
I don't know what it is. I think it's just like
the winters without steak or something.
Yeah, it's like maybe too much vodka, no food.
It's a shared DNA. I can. So today we're here to talk about all the things that have brought you back to Los Angeles for this recent period in your life to continue directing and acting, as well as your release of Trained, an 18-minute film, which is now owned by Shorts.TV. Thank you. Keep saying shorts.com, but it's shorts.tv. So we're going to talk today a little bit about your this film, which we've been sampling backstage here, which touches on sexuality, but also mental illness and different things that experiences that people go through and often get marginalized or make it really difficult to be intimate and close and develop human relationships. So we're going to hear about that. We're going to also share about what helps you to focus and maintain your peak performance mentality and relief stress. So welcome and thank you for being in studio, Mr. Yuri Rutman.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. One thing I want to point out, the great thing about being here is I'm not in denial about being here. I'm actually here.
That's true.
I'm sitting in front of you. There's a table. I mean, everything is, this is it. So if anyone asks me, it's all transparent. It's on the table.
It's on the table. I love it. And I have to tell, you, Darrell, Yuri is an example of perseverance because he's been maintaining contact with me for the last year. And every time he sees a show promo or something for Richard Listen, he'd be like, when am I coming on?
Right.
When are we getting out there? When are we talking about that?
Okay.
And he's followed up despite people not getting back to him, people, not responding. So, that's a testament to when you really want to share your work and you remain committed and you don't take it personally, sometimes you got to be that squeaky wheel.
Yeah, I recall the first time that we did the podcast with Simi Cobbs. It took us about a year for me to actually come back on your show. So I think I was in his same seat at one point. So
you guys are both talking off stage like, man, Richard doesn't get back to me. No.
I think there's probably like some kind of sociopathic element in not taking things personally. But
right.
I am still pretty social, I think, in the real world. But when I have to kind of put on my land shark outfit and just, keep pushing and pushing and pushing, I think sometimes doors open and a lot of times they don't, but it's okay.
Yeah,
you just can roll with the punches.
It's a pretty unique art to that aspect of being persistent,
right,
without overdoing it or doing too much. And
right.
I think it's an art. Most people just say whatever, F it, forget it.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that, the door's closed. But if you continue to be persistent, and push yourself into that realm you need to be, or feel you need to be in, those doors open. Like, we're here now.
Well, I personally sometimes think like sometimes you could be pushing like doors, pushing, kicking, trying to, climb into the window, back door, basement.
Yeah.
It's not opening, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, something else opens up that's even better and bigger than what you may have even thought of. So
yes,
it's my experience.
I had lunch with a friend last week. This may seem like a non sequitur before we get to specific questions for Mr. Yuri Rutman, but he is a successful entrepreneur, and he recommended a book from the 80s that got him going.
Okay.
That, man, somebody can look it up for me, but it's one of these, How to Make It Rich, and I think the author is Srully Blotnick, Srully, Srully, I believe. So I had to get this because I was like, well, I know it's not, and the pages are all kind of battered, and it's definitely like, it's just good to hold a paperback from the 1980s. It's written differently. But what I really took away from at least the introductory part was, when they did a survey, I guess they followed over 30 years a group of people, and they found out, how many became millionaires, and they tracked the similarities between them. And none of it was, we always say it's like, well, it's who you know and things like that. Almost all of it was finding something you love, being willing to do every single aspect of it. So whether it's clean the floors, take the trash. Did you find it?
It wouldn't pop up.
Oh, it wouldn't pop up. Yeah, it's that far off of the Amazon bookshelf, but we'll share it on Instagram when we get the right title.
Yeah, I'll get
but
it
still
later.
very relevant. So pick something you love. Be willing to do every single aspect of it, and and patience. They're willing to do it for a long period of time. They're not results based, immediate. So to your point, right, that you're just pounding away and following through because you're determined to be successful. And there's a certain element to that with creativity.
Well, yeah, I think whether it's creativity or anything else in life, I think a lot of people, they just give up right at that point where they could have seen those openings happen, and I think that you look at high level athletes, whether they're, basketball players or, baseball players or even, MMA guys, who are like training for like the UFC. I mean, they're just giving it all out. I mean, the biggest champions in the world, I think, in anything, whether it's like sports or business, a lot of times, these guys are willing to go not the extra mile, but the extra, 100 miles. They're willing to, push themselves beyond any type of, logic or what they might even, read in a book and everything. I mean, all these guys, I think they have coaches, they've got sports psychologists, other things, recovery specialists,
Yes,
but
sir.
at the same time, I think that beyond that, they just say, you know what, I still want to keep pushing. And I think that's what kind of separates them. So I think, on one side, I think there's there is some truth where, there is some multi-generational, wealth that's, inherited and everything. But, you look at, aside from, athletes, you look at like a lot of like these like self-made startup guys recently in the tech world and, entrepreneurs, and, they're just coming out of nothing, and they're just kind of using their brain and their grit to just push beyond, boundaries, and they basically are creating magic. That's really what I think it is. I think if you keep, doing things, I mean, magic just happens. I mean, with the film that, I did trained, when I was, I knew I wanted to make a short film because I had a very small time element to put it together with the cast and the crew. And, I got a lot of, opposition from people and people I know in the industry. Oh, there's no market for, short movies. I mean, who's going to care about a short movie? I mean, anyone can make a short movie. People put short movies up on YouTube. Well, yeah, that's true. But I kind of had to think up outside the box a little bit. So once I made the film, I realized, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get, a big studio to release it. So what's, option B? And, getting it, even in front of Shorts TV, which is, the main and official distributor for Oscar-nominated movies. And, my movie, unfortunately, right now was not nominated for an Oscar, and it had absolutely no, film festival screenings. The fact that I was able to get on the radar of, the brass there, and they were interested enough to jump on it and acquire it. And right now it's playing every week, in the United States and, Europe and so forth. I think that's like, for me, that's like a big accomplishment and stuff. But I mean, it didn't happen overnight. I mean, there was like a lot of moving parts there and stuff. So
let's talk about what drives you or pushes you to be the best you can, or to perform at an elite level.
Well, I think there's different. I think, for me, as far as I remember, growing up in Chicago. On one side, I always knew I wanted to be involved with, film and, filmmaking and television, which was really odd because, I was growing up in a typical, very typical dysfunctional Russian Jewish immigrant / refugee family where the emphasis was on, well, you got to be realistic, and you got to go to school for 30 years, and you got to get a real job and stuff. And somehow I don't know what it was. I had this really weird addiction to just, TV and movie and just books, and I don't know where that comes from, but
probably a desire to escape all that pressure,
dysfunction,
stress, and realism.
Probably, yeah, that was probably an escape. But but it was a healthy escape. It wasn't like I was involved in anything illegal. Well, borrowing my neighbor's car when I was 15 doesn't count. But
we can't admit any past crimes here.
So anyways, yeah. But at the same time, it was strange because I remember going back in high school. I remember when I was a freshman in high school, I started reading like motivational books and inspirational books. I don't know why. I started reading Anthony Robbins and a lot of other things. And I was just always looking, for answers because I wasn't getting those answers, at home. I was definitely not getting those answers in school. Maybe some, bruises from getting into fights once in a while. But so I was always, searching for things that would propel me and inspire me to, to keep going and everything. And I think aside from books, I got into, martial arts really young in life. I started, I think Taekwondo when I was 7. And when I was in high school, I remember I was watching, I was always a fan of, the Rocky movies and even, Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I remember one time I was watching one of his first movies, Kickboxer, where he was doing this thing called Muay Thai. And I'm like, what's Muay Thai? You couldn't find Muay Thai in Chicago. And I was going through the yellow pages and I found one school. It was probably one of the first MMA schools in the country. It was called the Degerberg Academy. And I started doing Muay Thai. So I think for me, in terms of what keeps me at a peak level, I think are a combination of things. Number one, it's just my fire in my belly where I don't get complacent with anything. And when I catch myself doing it, I try to, wake up and do something, different to kind of propel me to a different level. 2 is just my desire to succeed in my passion right now. 3, I utilize, I still train a little Muay Thai, I train more Brazilian Jiu Jitsu when I have a chance. So that kind of keeps me going. For me, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, it's great for the mind because it's not only a physical workout, it's basically like playing chess. There's thousands of moves. You'll never fully, I think, learn everything. There's always new moves to relearn. So it rewires parts of your brain. And I feel like it does some kind of like, I think they call it brain plasticity, where you can keep banging the mic, sorry. Or maybe it's like
mic plasticity.
I don't know. It's like some, undiagnosed nervous twitch or something. I don't know. So, I do that. I do, in the last 6 months, I started doing a lot of also mindful meditation type exercises. I noticed that it really helps, clear the mind. In terms of other things or performance, I mean, I try to eat as clean as I can. Once in a while I have to go get my In-N-Out burger or, whatever. But for the most part, I try to eat clean. I try to eat foods that aren't like, inflammatory to the body. I take like a lot of supplements. I'm like a walking vitamin shop. I take 40, 50, 60 different supplements every day, for concentration and different things. So and the last thing that also keeps me going, aside from motivation, I was always studying the connection personally between, mind, body, spirit, not from a religious aspect, but just from like, what drives people to do what they do and do it positively. So I've always, studied different, spiritual paths, and I'm always, I'm involved with different things right now that also keep me, grounded, but at the same time to kind of motivate me when I feel the sky is falling and I need that, extra boost when green tea and coffee doesn't work.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. When we were talking offline prior to the show, you were like, "Hey, well, here's my overall, focus vision for this week, and here's how I'm trying to conceptualize things." And so, I appreciated that even in our dialogue. Do you have a favorite quote, a coach or a mentor? I know you've mentioned your jiu-jitsu. Is it a sensei? Or a coach who pushed you to go to the Pan Ams? I mean, that I remember when I heard about that originally, like that was really pushing out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, it was probably one of the craziest things I've done. I mean, most people when they start training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's belt rankings, white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt, and people who want to usually compete in, Jiu-Jitsu at the white belt level, for example, they start doing very small local tournaments and everything. And, when I was a white belt, I started jiu-jitsu actually in Chicago, and then I started training, here in Los Angeles with Cobrinha. And I think for me, I think I wasn't really even training jiu-jitsu initially for jiu-jitsu. I was training because it was some of the coolest and most down-to-earth people, I met at the gym. On one side, you've got these guys who are like pretty much killers. On the other side, I made some really good friends because of that. So for me, I never even thought about competing. I was just kind of doing it like as a weekend warrior and everything. And then a couple of years ago, I just started training a little more, and I got my blue belt, and I started training more, and I said, maybe I should give this a shot. So instead of, trying little small local, tournaments to prepare, I just jumped in right into the Pan Ams, which is one of the biggest, jiu-jitsu tournaments in the world. And I mean, I didn't do so great, but I did great from the fact that it was fun. And even though I didn't really get what I thought I would get out of it, it was a great experience. And it was great because my, coach Cobrinha, he was cornering me during my match and stuff. And afterwards, it wasn't, the first question he asked me was, did you have fun? And I was like, hey, I just had the best time of my life and everything, So since then, I still have been training. I haven't been training as much, but yeah, it was a great experience. And I would, if I have some time down the road, I would do it again and everything.
So he broke the pressure on winning as a sole view of metric of success.
Well, yeah, I think one of, like, for example, like in terms, I mean, I've got a lot of people that I follow, and life coaches. Different books I read on mental performance. In terms of, for example, motivation in terms of like sports performance. I think one of the things that I really love about his coaching and going to his gym, for example, is that he emphasizes about having fun. Win or lose, I mean, we're all champions the second we step on the mat and we actually try to, take that first step and that effort and everything. And I think that applies to, to everything in life. I mean, I think a lot of times, people sit there and they, when they don't get what they want or when they lose, they just sit there, endlessly, and they just beat themselves up and they criticize themselves, and they just, and instead of just saying, what, I just had a lot of fun. Next, wipe yourself off, dust yourself off and try again, so to speak. So,
right.
Yeah.
I deal with a lot of professional athletes, and a lot of times they lose that spark because it's not fun anymore. So I'm a firm believer in figuring out how to have fun again and be passionate about it, or don't do it at all because you're wasting your time.
How do you keep it fun when they come in to see you, Darrell?
How do I keep it fun?
Yeah.
Keep a loose environment, understand who I'm dealing with and kind of indulge into what he wants and not what I want. So that's one of the biggest things. Understand him mentally, physically, and give him his needs in a loose environment. And things won't feel as tense. So a lot of times guys come to the gym just because they want to get away from home. Dealing with relationships, wives, kids, whatever the case may be. Guys just want to kind of get away and release themselves. So who am I to make you feel like you're coming to do something strenuous or something that you need to do? Make it a fun environment. We all can have fun, but at the same time, let's get better. It's something that you mentioned earlier. Digging into your passion, it seems weird to someone looking outside in, but if you feel so passionate about it, you will chase it with everything you have, and that's how I did when I began training, and it was more so from a perspective of understanding everything about it from a physical standpoint, a psychological standpoint, everything that I needed to know, I indulge myself into it. And most people really won't understand it unless you have something that you're passionate about or you're intrinsically motivated about it. Since no one outside could tell me, to stop doing what I was doing, because it was me. It was upon myself to kind of dive in and be as great as I wanted to be.
Yeah, and that's a lot of my work with athletes when you employ motivational interviewing and you look at the trans-theoretical model of change, where it's like, pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, and then change. It takes time.
Mm-hmm.
People may not even be at a stage where they're thinking about changing something.
Of course.
And so if you try and confront them or push them with a model of, without allowing them the free will to think about, do they even want to change? Are they ready to? Do they want to commit further? What they always say, find your why, right? Why are you committing to going to visit a peak performance coach or getting up super early in the morning and going for runs and pushing yourself to be more uncomfortable? If it doesn't seem fun or exciting.
And that's why I believe the mental capacity aspect of performance, it's much deeper than when you're getting in the gym and working out. Because a person has to be mentally motivated to get there first.
Yeah. And I like what you said, Darrell, which is some of that capacity comes from freedom and safety. I'm going to the gym because it takes pressure off in one way. I enjoy connecting with my coach. I feel a relationship where he takes stress off. And then if I trust you,
yes, sir,
now I'm going to let you push me further because my capacity, my resilience may be built up even further.
Of course.
So, the intricacies of this in a coach and having that relationship and rapport is really key. But in talking with Yuri, because we're talking I mean, you are an athlete, but you're translating this into film. So the difference is we're not talking about football or basketball. For like when you're making a particular film trained, right, you had to get into the character, you got to get into the topic. So maybe talk to me about, obviously, I'm a psychologist. What was the inspiration for this film? And you're going to correct me if I say it wrong. I'm going to try it, right? And the phenomenon of siderodromophilia.
Siderodromophilia. Say that 3 times in a row really fast. I dare you.
Siderodromophilia.
Wow.
You could have played my part, but I don't know if that would have worked back in your domestic situation.
I don't think I can say it once. I can't say it once.
So what led you to this, right? I mean, is this your own personal knowledge and experience with mental health in the family or in the community? What drew you to experiences with say sexual deviance or with challenges people have in their intimate lives and relationships?
Well, I think first of all, I think what happened was I was a few years ago I was in Chicago and I was visiting family, and I was on a train, and I was just kind of looking out the window, and I remembered the last scene in Risky Business with Tom Cruise and Rebecca De Mornay, where they end up making love on a Chicago train. And I started asking myself if people actually do that or into that beyond just a movie. And then I remembered, 15, 20 years ago, David Cronenberg had this movie that he did called Crash. It was a bunch of people. They literally could only get turned on if they crashed their cars into each other. So, yeah, I don't think it would be good for your car insurance to do that.
Wow.
But
that's intense.
But so I started doing a little research, and I was just curious if there was literally something like that out there. Because there's a lot of, I don't know if you want to call them, deviancies, because deviancies, I feel like, are more like borderline criminal. I think they're more, I think what you want to refer to them more is there's a lot of different philias out there. There's a lot of people who are into a lot of different things. So, some people are into, wearing, furry animal outfits,
even that is the psychology term that defines this as relationship to the norm, right? So your experience, is, what's keyed this into people's experience, and how does it interfere with their functioning? So your curiosity found yourself in this phenomenon.
Right. So I basically realized that there's this condition where people cannot get turned on unless they're on or around moving trains. And I did a little, Google research to make sure no one's ever made a film or a television show about this. So my motivation for this really was, on one side it was creative, but on the other side I wanted to do something, original that stood out. I didn't want to, make another short movie about 2 guys sitting at a coffee shop, complaining about their wives and girlfriends and everything.
Right.
So digging deeper into this, I needed to, ask myself, okay, so here's a concept, how do I write a script around this concept that's interesting, that's deep, that explores both one person who suffers from this condition and my character who doesn't suffer from this condition, and he's just trying to, attempt to normalize his partner. And I basically, that's kind of where the seed of it was. I decided to make this film where, on one side there's this woman, the character Emma, who's played by Jenny D'Amico, and she's completely tortured regardless of what I do. Nothing is working, and she's aware that she has this problem, and I'm doing whatever I can to the point where I'm even in therapy myself in the movies, seeing a psychiatrist in the film and stuff to see if I could get some clarity on what's going
Robin
on.
Williams type psychiatrist that meet you in the park. I like that tribute.
Yeah, I don't think we had we didn't have a budget to like rent out like a big medical office or something. So I'm like, hey, let's do something interesting. And there's a reason it was in the park. If for people who end up watching the movie, there's some hints on why we did it in the park. So for me, it was really about there's when you were asking about relationships and mental health. Yes, on one side, you have someone who is suffering from this philia, but at the same time, it's so grinding into their mental health and into their soul that it's just it's turning them into, it's like completely disconnecting them from their center. And on the other side, you have my character who is trying to be old school, who's trying to practice unconditional love, who's trying to kind of be in the picture no matter what. And I think part of that also had to do with the fact that we live in a society right now that's just such a quick fix when it comes to either attempted romances, or if something's not working out, you're on the internet and, someone's always posting, 10 reasons it's time to break up with your wife or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or, we're I think society is so bombarded constantly with reasons rather than just to kind of simplify things where, if you're with someone, whether they have issues or they're not, yeah, it's your personal choice. But if you're going to be with them, try to have that grit, try to have that peak performance, try to understand that, yeah, it's not going to be easy, but if you're going to be with someone, don't do it with any conditions, don't do it with any agendas. Do it because you want to do it, regardless of...
It is true what you're pointing to, the trend. I do have more and more people coming to my office that have met online or via social dating sites, and that they've been connected. I mean, maybe they've met, but their amount of dialogue face-to-face or experience in person is very minimal. And therefore, it throws off the simplest habit, let alone if somebody struggled with depression, anxiety. I mean, what percentage of the population has been through something, and so the first time you get any wind of a flaw, how do you handle that? Are we equipped to handle the malfunctions? Last night we tried to have a conference call to lead up to the show, and my iPhone wouldn't turn off. I was like, there was no language for like your iPhone not working. Like it entered into this whole spiral for an hour or two of like, right?
Yeah.
How would you function? So that's how we're becoming with relationships. I think where these trends are occurring. So, I mean, Darrell, you talk about building up relationships and and working with people from an early age and seeing them reach their goals. How do you counteract that in the sports environment?
So one of the biggest things we do, we try to make everything a conscious act, a conscious act of several things and connecting components, making everything conscious. So a question that I wanted to ask Yuri, so with these people with these disorders, is it conscious? Do they know that they're dealing with these things? And how would you, if so, how would you get these guys to kind of understand that this is something that they shouldn't be doing?
Well, I think here's the thing.
Help with.
Well, I think it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I never had a lot of, patience for school, and I respect people like yourself who took it all the way.
It's an addiction. I got to stop already.
But I think people, I think anything in life, whether it's this condition or anything else, a lot of people, they're out there, they're experimenting with things or trying to, figure out, who they are. I think if people are doing things and it's not, hurting them or getting them, arrested, then there's a certain level or there's certain boundaries in place. I think on the flip side, if you're involved or you have like these, conditions or these, philias or anything else, that's somehow becomes like an addiction or starts taking over your life, then I think it's no different than, any other addiction. And I think, Richard, I think maybe, you can kind of jump on this. I mean, what's the fine line between, things like certain people having philias versus become, dysfunctional because of them, or, on an addiction level?
What's the fine line between being a philia and being an addiction?
At what point is one thing okay, and at what point is it not okay anymore?
I mean, again, the definition of anything usually lies with the person.
Right.
Like, so, if the character in your film, if that's an aspect of their own personal experience, and sometimes I'm not sure about sideromophilia.
Sideromophilia.
I still can't say it. Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. So, but without making jest of it, but usually in my work, look, some things get cued in the brain from a trauma or something highly activating at a young age, right? Some form of arousal that can't be duplicated, and that can really impair or disrupt your personal relationships. If you were in a committed relationship and you couldn't maintain any kind of closeness or excitement, it could cause, like you're saying, even it doesn't have to be a blog, people could feel rejected, hurt, shut down, frustrated.
Right.
So, it's addictive if, you're pursuing it and you don't see it as problematic and aren't able to look at, if there's a trauma, some sort of therapy, or look at other ways of feeling sensation or arousal in other ways, building up connection in other means in life. For some people, they may own their philias if their experiences that are different or unique, and that may be what they personally find original and that enhance them, and they may seek out others who have similar interests. So it's not for, when anyone judges anything. I know the DSM-4 and 5 started to, I think they put in there an extra classification around sexual disorders. So, making it more conscious and aware, I think being open that people are having these experiences and allowing people to find a safe place to discuss and get support around it and healing, I think is important, especially if relationships are being broken down and impaired because of this. On the other hand, and we want to reduce shame. We don't want people to feel that their interests have to be so heteronormative that they're completely shut down.
And another thing that I could add to this, I think it would be if someone is talking to you about something, it's all about their approach, how they say things. If they come at you with projection of their voice and they're beating down to you, 9 times out of 10 the person isn't going to listen. And I can admit that myself. If their approach is all wrong, I'm within the first 5 or 10 seconds, I'm turning them off.
And I think the short points to that, even in a relationship, if you're so angry and frustrated when the person is feeling ashamed,
of course,
and hurt, then it's going to be hard to maintain the relationship. But if you're willing to do couples work, or if a person can feel support around, hey, this is what they're into, but it's also something that they know they'd like to change. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. If something is formed as an adult or been kind of hardwired into your experience. But it's also entertainment, and it's also film, and some of these things we see in films point to, like, the temporary excitement of it. I mean, I just got done watching this. It's an offshoot of The Good Wife. They have The Good Fight on CBS All Access, and the main character, he's an attorney. Well, he winds up being disbarred, but they put, like, I think the equivalent of his office is like an opium den. Like, literally, it's like a bed, and the guy has like ketamine lollipops or something like that. I mean, it's a little bit odd, and he's completely eccentric and crazy, and they show that, but they also show, like, he's existing in this realm. Like, not everybody is an attorney, who's just got clean, organized files and follows a punch clock. So.
I hope the lollipops are at least cherry flavored.
So Yuri, let's get back into your training of jiu-jitsu. I train professional athletes. But one thing I always wanted to know was with people from different walks of life, how does that training mentally or physically prepare you to lock in to a role or to help you focus on and thrusting into something pertaining to writing or producing and things like that?
Well, I think like in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's like a real-time wake-up call that you're not always going to win, and a lot of times you're going to lose. And when I say lose, it's more about like, being, submitted or tapped or choked or what have you. I mean, sometimes, when I'm at the gym, for example, and I'll tell you how this correlates to, real life experience. Sometimes, I'm at the gym and I end up partnering with a woman, and she's I see someone who's half my size, half my weight, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to be very respectful. I gotta kind of take it easy on them. And next thing I know, they're climbing on my back and close to putting me to sleep. And I think how that applies, in real life is that sometimes what do we see? It's an illusion,
of course.
And we're now always going to get something as a result of what we see or what we envision. So I think from how martial arts, I think whether it's jiu-jitsu or people practicing other martial arts, I think how that translates into real life is like anything else. As long as they take what they want, as long as they take what they learn in the gym and carry it over into like a day-to-day, lifestyle, because, a lot of times, whether it's, martial arts or, self-help motivation seminars or, spiritual paths, a lot of times people get all hyped up and excited while they're practicing or they're training or they're listening to something. But the second they step out the door, the way they, handle, things in life, or sometimes even the way they, handle people,
right, it's
not always, up to par in the level of, respect and, human dignity and things like that. So I think with how I, for example, apply, when I train and into the real world, or how it applies in the film business, as I said, I mean, I'm not, at that level of being like an A-list, movie star or A-list director just yet. And it's okay. I've accepted that.
Of course.
But as long as I keep, going from like slowly inching from, like a white belt to like a 3-stripe white belt to a blue belt in like the movie business, and then the purple belt and so forth, then that's kind of how I look at it and everything.
Yeah. And it goes back to something that I always talk to my clients about: being conscious, being consistent. And then if you master or are consistent doing both of those things, your path will continue to build and grow. I've written a book by Robert Greene, The Laws of Human Nature. And one of the laws is the law of repetition creates mastery, and creating repetitive habits. What you just said is one way to focus and stay locked in on something. The problem with a lot of people that I know, that don't do something consistently, and then when you don't do something consistently, you develop negative habits, and with that you begin to go backwards. So this leads to the next question. So what is your routine, your daily routine, as well as the routine that you have when you're going, when you lock in and go on set?
Well, it's interesting you're saying that, because I'm kind of fresh off set from something I did 2 weeks ago, and we'll kind of reference that in a second. But normally, whenever I wake up, the first thing that I do is some kind of a meditation.
Yes,
it
sir.
could be different types of meditation, but I need to do something that kind of calms me down, kind of clears my head. And of course I still need to, follow up with a combination of, coffee, green tea, maca, cacao, and a bunch of other things I put into like this,
of course,
natural. So first thing I do is I really try to get into like the zone. Now that always doesn't help, because sometimes, out of, left field, something might be thrown your way, and the last thing you want to do is kind of, you're focused more on that, and you get all hyped up. But I noticed that it's still better to kind of just, have a clear mind, first thing in the morning and everything. And then once I do my meditations, I'll have something to eat, and I'll, go to the gym, and, whether it's, I'm going to, doing weights or cardio or jiu-jitsu or whatever. And then I start, the rest of my day. I just noticed that whenever I work out in the morning and I do some kind of workout, it really helps to unblock me even physically, and the blood rush to the brain, it helps you focus and stuff. I notice like I'm a completely different like human being during the day. In terms of set and so forth, well, for this film Trained, I don't know, I did a couple, we put this whole film together literally like in 2 weeks. So it was a matter of where I connected with my DP and other producer, Scott Drucker, and he's like, listen, man, I'm going on a ski trip in 2 weeks. You got to write a script, you got to cast it, and you got to put this thing together, and we're going to make this movie in 2 weeks, or I can't do it. So somehow I was able to do it. And most actresses in Chicago that wanted to do the film, once they read the script, they're like, I'm not doing this film. There's no way I'm going to do this film. And I was lucky that I found...
It's a lot of vulnerability and a lot of comfortability with yourself.
Well, yeah, so I was lucky that I found Jenny, because she... not only was she very professional, she did a lot of other shorts and features in Chicago, and she was just more, open to doing these kind of things. So
what motivated her, do you think?
She just loved it. I think she just loved it. And when I asked her, look, and there was still a level of, high degree of professionalism, because, I still had to have certain, releases and, whatever. But when I asked her, listen, how far are you willing to go to make this real? She goes, look, I love the story. This is the most original thing I've ever done. I trust you. Let's just go with the flow and stuff. And I think that translated into the, on screen, because I think, people who watch the film and they watch our love scenes, they're like, are you sure you weren't like a real couple in real life? And I'm like, no, we just had a certain level of trust and understanding.
How did you build that trust? Did you know her prior?
Never. I literally, she responded to some casting call. She was one of, many people. And I thought, oh, great. Another person. She's going to read the script. She's going to say no. And she's like, no, I want to do this. And then we got together a few times for, rehearsals. And I don't know, we just had a vibe. I can't explain it. It's like that with anything else in life.
It just happens.
Sometimes, like you could just like force it. You could do this, you could do that. But we just had like this natural, like professional and personal chemistry that allow us to do, what we did. Of course, for me doing these kind of things, I've never, done love scenes. Maybe once or twice in my personal life, but but in terms of, on camera, it was just like, I was directing, I was acting. It was very difficult to do these scenes because they were choreographed. So sometimes, people ask me, oh, did you have fun doing that? No, it wasn't fun. It was not fun. Fun was the editing. Fun was, adding the music. Fun was writing the script.
Yeah, you have a great taste for music.
Oh, thank you.
Spanish guitar, apparently.
Oh, it was, anything I could get through Creative Commons for my budget.
Right.
But in terms of sets, it's interesting because 2 weeks ago, I actually shot a guest star episode on Chicago PD. Okay. So
great show.
Yeah, it was a great show. So
are you a good guy or a bad guy?
I can't say yet because I signed something where I can't talk about my character or even post any like social media pictures until the episode airs. So I have to honor and respect, NBC and Dick Wolf Productions.
You'll respect it, but
because I want to work. I want to work. I want to be hired again.
Your shadow is pointing towards mob bodies and Skokie. So
yeah, right. No, so the interesting thing is, with that, when you ask me, how do I perform for that on set? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I couldn't sleep the night before that. I even remember when I did the Pan Ams, I went down to like Irvine. I even got like a hotel room so I could be there instead of driving from LA. I couldn't sleep that night either. So I think that, personally me, I admit I probably have some sort of, performance anxiety when,
it's common for a lot of athletes before a big game.
And for me, I had horrible performance anxiety for this, for Chicago PD. So I maybe slept an hour or two. I don't know how I did it. I just, overdosed on a bunch of green tea and caffeine and, Bing energy drink that I had shipped from Amazon like 2 days before. And I got to the set, and all of a sudden I was just chill. I started doing like mindful meditation. I started doing like some belly breathing. I started doing like this. It's called Ujjayi breathing. It's like this yoga breathing where you're like kind of breathing through your like diaphragm and what have you. And that calmed me down. And the interesting thing was, here I am on this set. There's like a crew of like 100. The stars of the show are in the same van as me, going from, from base camp to the set. And I was like the first scene of the day. So I'm thinking, okay, how's this going to happen? Because it's been a while since I've done something like this. Because, I went from like a little guerrilla film to this huge, NBC production. And I'm thinking, but for some reason, it was all cool. I mean, the cast was very nice. And we started doing rehearsals first. So that was cool. And I did my scene with the star of the show, Patrick or Patty Fluger. And from the first rehearsal, he just kind of gave me a fist bump. And he's like, awesome, bro. And that just kind of calm me down. And then we kind of did like probably a bunch of other takes, and the director was there, and he was like, that's really good. So the more so they were my coaches. They were my coaches.
So other than trusting Bing Energy, it sounds like trusting your performance routines once you get in to the arena, trusting some of the techniques you've applied from jiu-jitsu to your performance and acting, from breathing to meditation, might be able to help reduce some of that arousal. I know, we have to wrap up soon. We want to hear more about where people can reach you. We want to hear more about what you'll be doing in this current stint in Los Angeles. It's now home, correct?
Correct.
So please tell people how to find you and what you'd like to share.
Yeah, sure. Well, if people want to have more information on how to watch Train, it's on Shorts TV, but most of the press, Shorts TV, it's in 33 million homes on cable in the United States and in Europe. But people can follow my movie Trained at facebook.com/trainkiss, which is very easy to remember. I'm on Instagram under Yuri_Rutman. I'm on Twitter at Yuri_Rutman. Aside from, Train and Chicago PD, I'm, in LA, I'm auditioning for a lot of different things. And I'm also, writing and creating a few other films and TV shows. For the TV side, I've got a couple writing and producing partners, and we've got some ideas that we're going to be taking to networks soon. On the film side, I'm basically structuring most of those still as a, independent film in terms of sourcing investors and using some of my other background as a venture advisor and entrepreneur to structure the financing for that.
So maybe financing podcasts?
Maybe one day, yeah, we could talk about that as well. So that's pretty much what my, new LA adventures are bringing me.
Well, thank you for being here, for your persistence, for your effort, for your creativity, and for including aspects of emotional and mental health in what you do, and educating people and getting their curiosity and interest up, and for being authentic in that way to your past. As always, we have, please follow Mr. Darrell Noel, DMN1_1 on Instagram. If they want to come work out with you, Darrell, where are you located?
I'm located in Burbank at the Muscle Farm facility. So if you wanna come join me for a workout, they also have jiu-jitsu classes for you, so you can jump in every Tuesday and Thursday. But if you want to join me, send me a direct message, Instagram at DMN_1_1.
See, I might have to move our podcast date so I can get a jiu-jitsu class.
Yeah, every Tuesday and Thursday.
Please continue to reach out to us with your interest in coming on the show, your field of high performance and interests you'd like to share with us. We hope to represent and include performance techniques and strategies from many areas of sports, medicine, and entertainment, and any other area that we may not be aware of that you are tapped into. Again, Richard Listens on Instagram, Twitter at Richard Listens, Facebook /Richard Listens for a blog. You get the theme, and we will be releasing our show on Spotify and iTunes. And soon in the near future on Vesby TV, you'll be able to download us on your smart TV app in your home and live coming at you. So, and you can even download it later when you get home with a cup of coffee or glass of wine, or when you do your, what kind of breathing is it?
It's Ujjayi.
Ujjayi breathing. Yeah. Yes. Rhythmic Ujjayi breathing, whatever, relaxation, restorative yoga, or yin yoga, whatever you're doing. We hope to be there with you. Thanks again, everybody. And we appreciate you listening, and we are out.